What's happening, everybody? Willie here at the Great Outdoors. And I'm going to tell you what, the Great Outdoors is cold, cold, cold. Man, how's the weather? Let's just start off like that. That's how they used to do it back in the day. How's the weather where you are? Well, I'm going to tell you what, from about the middle of the country all the way east, woo, man, some crazy weather. Today is January 4th, Saturday, January 4th, 2025. Hope you had a great Christmas and a wonderful New Year. But the weather has dropped. I think, like I said, from the center of the United States east, man, some crazy things are happening. I hope you're doing okay. That's all I'm going to say. I woke up to a 12-degree morning. Yeah, 12 degrees. Windy, raining. Sun's out now, though. For how long, though, who knows around here. But hey, that's enough about the weather. Why are we here today? We are here today to pick up on the end of a conversation we had a few videos back on the Johnson Reel Company. Or the Johnson Fishing Company. Because Johnson did make more than reels. But in my world, it was all about those reels. So what we actually stopped on was the 150A Commander. That's kind of where we stopped. When actually we did the 150A before we did the 150, which was kind of backwards. So technically we stopped on the 150 where we should have started. But that's okay. We can pick up on the 150A. Where are we going to pick up on the 150A at and why? Well, this 150A had a very direct relative. Internally speaking, the 150A is really nothing more than a 710. Brings us around to this gorgeous 710B that you're looking at right now. We have a 710B. That is a gorgeous reel. I'm not kidding you. Beautiful. Now, I won't be perfectly honest with you. The 710 I've had a couple of, but most of them were absolute wrecks. And I mean wrecks. Just salvageable parts, really, more than anything. Two of the technical downfalls to these particular reels were as follows. The spool could actually corrode into the frame because they were a metal spool and it's seated down inside the frame. So they could actually corrode down inside the frame and get stuck, frozen, messed up, destroyed. I mean, and you had to whack away at it. Sometimes you could get the thing loose and clean it up and it would be perfectly fine. And then there were some like the ones that I had where the spool was stuck in there so bad that the spool actually broke and cracked in my hand trying to get it out. The other downfall to this particular reel was the way it's put together. You had a cap that screwed onto a plastic body. That was the only thing that kept these reels together. That was it. So if you happen to accidentally cross-thread, mess a thread up on this plastic, because the plastic part is your threaded part, your male threaded part. The female threaded part is the cap. If you screwed these caps up or threads, it wouldn't hold together. And that's not good because that's basically, when you press the button and you press on the drive shaft, which pushes on the rotor and then pushes things just flew apart. It was bad. It would quite literally fly apart. So there were your two downfalls to this reel. So I never really got overly involved in the things. Of course, if you take the time frame to which these reels came around, the original now, 710, just straight 710, well, that came out in 1961. And it held its own from 1961 to 1964. Just the straight 710. Then you went to the old 710A. The 710A came around in 1965 and went from 1965 to 1971. So it did pretty good, held on for a good little while. Then you came to the B model, the 710B, which held on from 1972 to 1978. Now that's a pretty good long run. Now when it comes to the Johnson reels, usually by the time you get to B is usually where, hey, that's the best we got. B. We have B. When you get to B, that's the way it works sometimes. With Johnson anyway, they did everything they could do. They made it as good as they could make it, and they kind of kept it in that realm. Well, crazily enough, they decided to go to a 710C, which I'm going to show you a picture of. Now the 710C didn't stay around long. It was 1979 to 1980. It is what it is. I don't know much about that reel. I know it had some kind of automatic transmission kind of thing. I don't know what all that was about. Needless to say, it was only around a very short period of time, so we're not really going to get overly involved in that particular reel right now. But the crazy thing was, they didn't stop there. From 1985 to 1988, they had a graphite series 710. Craziness. Absolute craziness. Now, we all know that the graphite reels really, well, they just didn't. So here we drop back to the 710B, which I think personally, I've asked Gary, same thing. They all have a personal opinion that the 710B was the best of the best when it came to the 710 realm. Okay? Now, enter the 150A with AccuCast. Now see, I think if Johnson would have made a commercial with the AccuCast doing that, every time someone casted, they probably would have sold 1 million of these things. Because I can only imagine if you were out on the water with one of these, and every time you cast, you went, I think every kid that was out there that saw that would be like, hey, Dad, Mom, can I have a 150A Commander with the AccuCast? Probably would have sold billions of these things. So what is it about the 710B and the 150A that makes them such direct descendants of one another? Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing we're going to do is go along the outside here and take a good look at what makes these two guys really the same reel, if you want to know the truth. Let's take a look at those buttons real quick. They're identical. There's no difference, other than this one says AccuCast on it. That's it. This one just says Johnson, but they're the same identical button. You also have the button lock, if you notice on the bottom there. That's right, you have your button locks for those who like to set the hook with authority. Or when you're retrieving, you know, lock that button out so you don't accidentally set that fish free. Not that I know anybody who's ever done that. I'm sure there's probably someone who's done it at one point or another. Anyway, if you take a look at those crank arms right there, they're both the same. You have the larger, thicker diameter crank arm, which is going to give you a longer crank shaft inside there, making them pretty much the same, the 150A and the 710B. You still have your drag knobs in the same place. You still have the little locking nut with the red piece on the end there that keeps it from accidentally coming off, then you're losing it and things falling off. You still have the plastic back end. You still have metal caps. You also have a metal, hold on, so hard to hold these things. You also have your metal frame. That's right, all metal frames. And you have the benefit of knowing that all 710s were made in the US. That's right. Every one of them made in the US. It's a warming feeling. It is, I'm not kidding. Now let's take a look on the inside and see where our differences are. This is going to be very simple. First off, let's get this cap off. They all come off the same doggone way. You just unscrew it off of there. Let me get this cap off of this Commander with AccuCast. I'll stop that now. Let's look inside these caps. Okay, 710B. Obviously, just a typical green cap with your slots on the top and your silver racing stripe in that wonderful Johnson green color. Look inside there. That's right, there's your 150A, your Commander. That is part of the AccuCast system on the inside there with that rather large chrome. It's fancy looking. I mean, you had to have it to make the AccuCast work. Because if you look, it's recessed in that AccuCast nut, which brings us around to this. The AccuCast nut fits inside there. So there's your two differences internally. AccuCast on the cap with the AccuCast nut, where you do not obviously have the AccuCast nut or the AccuCast line guide on the cap there. Other than that, everything's the same. Now, let's take a look at the inside. We'll pull that off of there. Hey. Now internally, you are dealing, let me take a good look. Yeah, that's all. Yep, right. Internally, you are dealing with the same stuff. It is the same identical gearing. You see right there? Anti-reverse lever is actually the same. Everything is the same. It is all the same on the inside. So really what you could do probably is take that nut off of there on the 150A, the Commander, screw it onto the 710, taking that nut, acorn nut off, and screw the AccuCast cap on there, and you can turn your 710B into a 150A Commander with, dare I say, AccuCast. I said I'd stop it. So there you go. There is your 710B. Nice reel, very nice reel. Speaking of nice reels, as you've noticed, a lot of these reels that I've been getting, they are gorgeous. And I have been spending the money to make sure that I get a gorgeous reel. Some of these reels are hard to find. The 710s aren't that hard to find, but they're hard to find in decent enough shape. Like I said, a few of the ones that I have found through the years have been in very, very bad shape. This was not my favorite reel in the Johnson lineup by any means, but I tried. Andy came to the campground and brought his when we were fishing together, and I got to cast it a couple times and give it a fling, and I was like, okay, I like it. It seems to be an okay reel. The only downfalls, again, being just that threaded area that holds it together and the spool corroding into the body. Make sure you clean them. When you're done fishing, take that spool out, dry the water that's in between the spool and the body, get that out of there, specifically if you're doing any kind of saltwater fishing whatsoever. And just be careful screwing the caps on and off. You don't want to mess those threads up because you will have a problem. Speaking of problems, one of the cool things about going back into the Johnson history was you could actually take one of these Johnson reels if you had a problem with it. You could send it off. You could send it right back to the Johnson factory and they would fix it and send it right back to you. So if you had a Johnson reel, you had a Johnson reel for life if you wanted it. I mean, you could fix it, send it right back, and whatever you broke or whatever was broken, you could get it repaired. That's very cool. Now, I don't know about Shakespeare and Zebco and all those guys, if they did all that or not. I'd have to look into it, but I think that's a very cool thing. Now, when I used this reel, not this one particularly, but the 710B that Andy had, I kind of told myself then, you really need to, you're a Johnson fan when it comes to these reels, you need to have one. I called Gary, and I'm going to put Gary's credentials up here. For any of you guys, gals, kids, whatever, that are looking for parts or a complete Johnson reel of some kind, in all flavors, in all conditions, talk to Gary. Give him an email. Shout him out. Say, hey, I'm looking for, I'd like to have a 710B, maybe not beautiful, gorgeous, something that functions really good, may have some dings and scratches and dents, or maybe you want one that's absolutely 100% shiny, gorgeous. Maybe that's what you're after. For me, it's always been beat up, banged up, scratched up, whatever I could get, until I met Gary and Dan Selvig, for that matter. And I started being able to purchase or trade with those guys and get better quality reels. Because if you do wait, like I do, to go into these places and try to find them, you know, you might go into 10 stores and find one reel and it could be an absolute basket case. So it was just nice to be able to give him a call, give somebody a call, Gary or Dan, and say, hey, I'm looking for a, do you have one? If that's what you want, please look them up or look Gary up and try to get what you're after. Just talk to him. Just email him, tell him what you're after. He'll get right back with you. You never know. You might be like me and have a reel that you never really thought would be on your list to all of a sudden become on the list. Anyway, Hey, hope you guys enjoyed this little segment on the Johnson reels, a little history on their time frames and that kind of thing. There'll be more to come on different ones, but your 710B that went from 1972 to 1978, pretty good long run for the old 710B. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and we're going to see you on the next one, whatever the next one may be. Even if it's a 150A with chicka-pocket now AccuCast. I like doing that. I do like doing that. I'm probably going to sound like a complete idiot out there. They're doing that on the side of the lake or something.